Tom, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad for an old man.
Awesome. Awesome. So there should be no surprise. I've announced on the short, we've got the sign behind us.
Yeah, yeah,
The movie we're discussing today is a 2003 Ridley Scott movie, Matchstick Men.
and excellent movie. I would say excellent choice, but it was my choice, so I can't pat myself on the back.
Yeah,
What was your opinion, Dom? You said you
my
never saw.
opinion, it was a good movie. I'm gonna give it one thumb. Like I'm gonna spoil
Really?
the end and give
Okay,
it one thumb. There were some problems with it in my mind that
okay,
made it less enjoyable to me.
okay.
Solid movie,
Yeah,
entertaining, decent story. I had some issues with it.
okay. Well, for me, it's this is a movie that I actually hadn't seen until probably a couple of years ago, and I was surprised because I hadn't seen it, and I wasn't really that aware of it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And Nick Cage, I think he's a terrific actor when he's in the right when
When
he's in
he's
the
in the
right
right
movie,
role,
and when he's in the wrong one, he can I mean let's face it, he's called it in a few times with bad scripts and low budget movies and just movies that weren't.
although sometimes that's what the audience wants from
That's
Nicolas Cage.
true. That's true. And there are a few movies of his that he's done that actually I really enjoyed because they were like bad good.
We'll talk
So
about Mandy sometime.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I know. Yes. Seriously. Um, but yeah, I definitely of course I've said this many times, but I love my con man movies,
Mhm.
and this was definitely a con man movie. I definitely picked it partly because of that. But
So,
yeah,
so for, for
go ahead.
those of you following along at home,
Yeah.
if
And we
you've
are
not seen this
spoiler
movie,
alert, by the way. So we're gonna spoil the movie if you
oh,
have.
totally.
So, but go ahead.
So Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell play Roy Waller and Frank Mercer, two con men that have partnered up and are doing jobs together. Um, Sam Rockwell's character, I'm sorry, Frank Mercer. I should use the names. Frank Mercer wants Roy Waller to do a long con, and he's reluctant. He wants to stick with short cons
Yeah.
that do not provide as much return, but are easier,
Yeah.
safer. Um, Part of the movie is about Roy Waller has a number of mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Tourette's, obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah. And well, and that is one of the reasons why he sticks to the short cons too, because he knows, like Clint Eastwood said many years ago, man has got to know his limitations, and he does know his limitations. He does have a real uh, OCD, whatever the whole. You could probably be well more suited to diagnosing what is.
Well, this is one of this mental illness thing. This angle is one
Yeah,
of my big issues with the movie. I'll get
really,
into that later.
really, yeah, because I actually I actually really enjoyed the fact that it was a part of the movie. I understand that probably they don't always get these things right, and
And they did
sometimes,
not here.
well, and sometimes they also don't like, they just have somebody get better or have somebody like start performing more, more successfully all of a sudden, and it's like that just doesn't happen. Uh, Not without therapy, not without drugs, not without whatever. But and for some people, they're never going to be fully functional.
But
But
before we get into that, back
yeah,
to the plot. He's on medication.
yeah,
He drops his medication down the sink,
yeah, yeah,
and finds out that his doctor that prescribed the medication is gone, is done.
Yeah.
So he's going to find someone else. His partner, Frank, suggests this therapist whom he is desperate enough to see and prescribes or gives more medication for. And so he's a little more back on track. While he's talking to his therapist, he lets it slip that he always wondered if he had a daughter with a previous relationship. I can't remember if they were married or not.
No, I think they were just living together, but yeah.
But he always wondered what happened with this woman and if she had a child and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so the
Well,
therapist
she was in fact pregnant when they broke up, but yeah.
the therapist reaches out to the ex, discovers the daughter, mentions it to Roy, and then the daughter calls him and she wants to come back into his life.
Yeah.
He's understandably freaked. He's a criminal. He's a con man. He's breaking the law. Plus, he has multiple mental illnesses. But this daughter is a breath of fresh air, reinvigorates him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he decides to go for the long con with his partner Frank.
Yeah.
So you've got these dual storylines. You've got him and his rekindling his relationship with his daughter, and now you've also got him and his partner Frank doing the long con on this Mark, who is Chuck Frenchette or Chuck Frechette.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
better pronunciation, but yes.
the daughter wants to get involved in his life and therefore in his con.
Well, she actually, she once she gets, and she, that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie was his relationship with her, because she was such a breath of fresh air for him, and she did reinvigorate his life. He didn't have anybody, and he didn't really think he wanted her in his life. I mean, other than he was curious, definitely, but once he sees her and once he's around her, he starts to really become attached to her. And she's a 14-year-old, and she really acts the teen. So it's he's actually kind of both annoyed and enjoying the fact that he's suddenly got a teen daughter. And that I think, just having, I don't have kids myself, but just having experienced my nieces and nephews, they've all endeared themselves to me. And there's something about a niece too, that it's kind of like a real heartwarming thing to have this young girl in your life that just wants to find out stuff about you and your life and things like that. And it's really sweet, in a way that sometimes even a nephew doesn't give you that, but yeah, he's got that with his daughter suddenly, and she just keeps, what do you do for a living? She really is right on to the fact that there's no way. He says he's an antique dealer. He's not an antique dealer. She's hip to it, and he finally takes her in on a small con,
which I gotta say is I've got multiple problems with this movie.
Right. Okay.
And one of which is he's been making his living as a con man.
Right.
He can't fool this little girl.
Right. Well,
she's a teenager. He cannot, he can't pull this.
Yeah.
On a teenager.
Well, for one thing, she is in fact not a teenager, which we come to find out later. And she plays the part very well.
Oh, extremely well.
Extremely well. And in real life, she was in her 20s when she played this role, and she was so good at looking and acting like a teen. It's hysterical. And I think that's another part of the movie that I found really endearing, was the fact that she pulled this off so well, and she just she just bonded herself with him, and they were father and daughter, you know. Um, but the whole thing with he was adamant that he was not going to let her know about his life, and or that he was going to show her any cons. And in fact, after the con, it's a simple con over a lottery ticket, but he makes her give the money back, and she's kind of miffed about that. But he doesn't want her to be influenced by what he's doing, so he makes her give the money back. But that's again, like I said, that was one of the things that I found cute and endearing was.
She was phenomenal. The actress is Alison Lohman.
Yep, yep.
And I don't know if you heard the story, but when she came to the audition, she dressed like a teenager and acted like a teenager.
No, I didn't. I didn't hear that part,
And
but no.
it wasn't until later that she told people on the set that she was 23.
Yeah, yeah.
People thought she was actually a teenager. That's how
She
good she was.
she looks like she is. She's actually played a few roles where this is her in Flicka, and
Ah,
she played like I don't know, it was a 15, 16-year old. She she's actually, from what I hear, she's retired from acting.
she
Uh,
is.
but which is a shame because I think she's a very good actress. But I think she teaches acting classes now,
Yep,
from what I
yep.
heard. But yeah, this is her in Flicka, and she played a young girl in this one, so she was able to pull those off.
You've
And
got a still of her from Flicka. I know her from the Sam Raimi film Drag Me to Hell.
oh, I know that movie. Oh, absolutely, I love
I
that movie.
almost pulled a
Yeah,
still from that.
yeah. No, why not? No, she's actually pulled off a number of roles. Like I said, uh, she's capable of acting different ages, and different ages well. She can go from teens to 20s to probably her own her own age, whatever that is now.
Hmm.
But
No,
no,
she was great.
yeah. And the thing about I'm not sure what your problem was with the con, about like, did you think that she just like pulled the con off too well, because she became
I
part of it?
do.
Um, I don't, because first of all, he wanted her to experience the con, so he had her play a part. But she had already shown him a couple of times where she piped up about something, and she had already shown him that she was kind of streetwise and a little hip. So he kind of had that in his head. But then there's the other thing. If in fact she was actually related to him, his daughter, DNA is a strong thing. So
Hmm.
and then, just like in, I know you had the problem with the with oh, what's Paper Moon? Tatum O'Neal, she's like real streetwise. But sometimes a kid can, or a teen or whatever, can sometimes really surprise you with how well they can pull some stuff. They're
They
especially
can.
nowadays. They're getting smarter. They're getting smarter and hipper. So like I said, I didn't have a problem with how she handled the con. I thought she was just
Well,
somebody that was
I
kind of.
didn't have a problem with how she handled the con,
Yeah.
except for the fact that it ruined the ending of the movie.
How so?
I, so I gotta say, like as soon as Nicolas Cage, as soon as Roy Waller
Yeah.
met the new therapist,
Right.
Dr. Harris Klein, played by Bruce Altman,
Right.
as soon as that scene happened, I
Yeah.
knew this guy is not a real therapist.
Yeah. See, I just, my feeling when I saw the movie the first time. I mean, I probably saw a few more flaws seeing it the second time, but the first time I watched it, my feeling was more to the feeling that he was more like he wasn't a great therapist. I mean, the previous therapist that he'd gone to was obviously some kind of a quack, because the guy was not actually seeing him, but giving him drugs. And when he goes to the new therapist, his first his first thing is, I just want the drugs. Just give me the drugs. I need him to function. And the therapist says, no, if I'm going to give you drugs, you're going to have to see me or you're not going to get the drugs. And so, in fact, after the first session, he says, okay, you bought yourself a week of, and he gives them some pills, um, sample pills, whatever they were supposed to be. But so yeah, I kind of got that part. I didn't feel like, the first time watching it anyway, I did not feel at all like it was a setup or there was anything.
I gotta say, I was in the medical profession.
Yeah.
And so I've got a little insight that maybe most people don't do. But as soon as I saw that guy, I'm like, okay, this guy is not a therapist.
Right.
He is not, this is not how things work in any way.
Right. Well, first of all, there's two things with that. One is, sometimes when you're watching a movie, it doesn't necessarily have to be that the guy is not a therapist. It's just that Hollywood doesn't always get the parts right.
And that's right. That is possible.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm an audience member.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that they did not present that as an actual therapist.
Right. Right.
Scene. It was just unreal. It was so unrealistic.
Yeah.
To me. And I get that realism maybe is not always the first thing in movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that does annoy me also if I see a scene. It depends on the movie. If I'm watching a comedy, and this is one of the things that I've always tried to explain, why something might irritate me in one type of movie that will not irritate me in another type of movie, and that is, if I'm watching a comedy and it's satire and it's a lot of craziness and
right,
then you don't expect that shit is right.
right.
But if I'm watching drama, which there was some comedy in this for sure, but this was mostly played straight. And so in that sense, you do expect that things are going to be more right. And if they don't get the things right, then yeah, you're more irritated because, but to me, it was not enough. And again, I'm not in the medical profession. I don't, I've never even seen
it was just so many things. His partner recommended this guy by name, which without any explanation as to why his partner would at all be knowledgeable.
Well, I thought what his partner said was that there was someone that someone else, a friend of his, was seeing, and he was like, try this guy. So I thought that was,
it's just one suspicion.
Yeah.
And then the unprofessionalness of the therapist himself is number two.
Yeah.
That the therapist would be the guy to tell him he had a daughter was number three. It just, like, the whole thing worked out. I'm like, okay, this is a con.
Right. Well, he actually asked the guy to do it. And the guy at first says, I really don't think I should be like getting involved. That's something you need to do. And he goes, I can't. I tried to call. I kept trying and I couldn't do it. I need you to just check for me. And so he convinces the guy to do it, which I'm sure the guy was really ready for him to try to convince him, but because it was part of the con. But yes, and so as far as the plot of the movie, for people listening, if you haven't seen it, I think you should see it, and then I highly recommend it. But as far as the getting in touch with the kid, that is all part of the con. She's actually, in fact, not a kid. And the long and the short of the plot is that everything blows up in the poor guy's face. and he gets robbed of pretty much everything.
The poor
So
guy being Nicolas Cage.
yes, yeah, he's pretty much left with absolutely nothing at the end.
But
Uh,
all I'm saying is, as soon as he met with the therapist, I knew the story.
yeah, yeah.
And,
See,
and everything that happened thereafter just reinforced what I knew
well,
about the story.
it's yeah, like for me, I did not get that at all. And I usually am really hip to picking up on stuff in
You're
movies.
usually
Like,
better than I am.
yeah, well, I just know that I usually like I'll be watching a movie and I'll be like, I've just figured this out. And I'm actually like I said, I'm usually uncanny when it comes to figuring out a plot like that. Um, I didn't see this one coming on that part of it. I did start to wonder when they were getting involved in the con of that, because the major plot of this movie is that his partner is getting him going on this money transaction.
On
The guy,
their long con
yes, that's the
with
long,
with Chris Frechette
yes, and who is great in the movie, by the way.
or
He's
Chuck Frechette. So
yeah,
so that actor is Bruce McGill.
okay, yep.
And I was going to ask if we're having a Bruce McGill film festival because he was also the sheriff in My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, really, really. Uh, oh, that's right. Yeah, that now,
Yeah.
yep, you're absolutely right. He was in fact the sheriff. That just clicked in my head when you said that. Yeah. Um, but um, but he is great in this movie. Both first of all as what looks like and he is in fact a sleazy character. Um, but then later in the movie when it turns out that uh, the whole thing gets discovered, they do a bait and switch with the money, and he thinks he's being given um, what's the equivalent of a larger amount of money being swapped out with an exchange. It's all done for an exchange rate so that he makes
So
some.
if anyone is interested in the con itself,
Yeah,
that is called the pigeon drop.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's where the con man works with a partner. One of them happens to discover this prize, antique lottery ticket,
yeah,
something that means a lot of money.
yeah,
The mark is asked to give up a smaller
yeah.
sum of money to be clued into the larger sum.
Right, right.
And then there's the bait and switch, but
Yeah.
it's actually a very old con.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and believe me, it's I mean, there's people that walk around in daily life that are doing this con on a small scale all the time.
All the
Like
time.
like what he had his daughter do with the lottery ticket. She they find a lottery ticket. It's actually a lottery ticket that's been slightly obscured, and it's also the wrong date, but it has the winning numbers for the previous draw, and the date is kind of like obscured a little bit. So they think they've won a sum of money, whatever it is, 2,000, 5,000, whatever it is. So the person actually coughs up money from their own bank account, and they take the ticket for their half, and they're going to turn it in. But yeah, so that's how that the con was done with his daughter. And but it's
It was a small scale pigeon drop. It was the
yes,
same con on a smaller scale.
yeah, yeah. And let's face it, it gets done nowadays over the internet a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's so many there's so many ways there's so many ways that type of con can be conducted.
So as an artist, one of the cons that I've been targeted with, like a multiple number of times,
Really,
people ask for a commission. They're like, "Oh, I've seen your work. Your work looks great. I love it. I want to buy something for my wife." Um, and they'll ask me my rates, and I'll be like, "Okay, what are you looking for?" Well, there's some discussion, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sending you a check."
Yeah.
and they'll send me a check for like 10 times the amount.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. I wrote an extra one. Why don't you just cash that check and send me back
Right.
the rest? And
Yeah.
obviously the check never clears. It's fake. And so I don't know how many people have been taken in by it. It's old enough now by the time that I got approached by it that I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, there are people that definitely transact business by check, but nowadays I'm actually, it's funny because nowadays I'm an older guy, but there's so many ways of paying somebody. It's like you can't use PayPal, you can't use Venmo, you can't use, it's like,
Exactly. Apple Pay, like
yeah,
Google Wallet.
yeah, pay me some other way, but I want the money and I want the transaction to go through that way. So I mean, like I said, it's getting harder to pull off those type of cons. It's you're more likely going to have to do something on the street with something physical in your hand in order to get somebody to actually move money. So yeah, that's the problem with those type of cons now. But
But
there's always the workaround.
this is why we're fascinated with con movies,
Yeah, yeah, for
because
sure.
at its basic level, it's a form of social engineering.
Oh yeah,
You're
yeah.
setting up a person's want, love, greed, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, and you're
Well,
feeding into that to get the money.
yeah. Well, you're definitely playing into their greed because that's a huge part of the con. And I wouldn't say that it's even always just fully greed. Sometimes it's actually need. And one of the things, because I've thought to myself, if I was gonna be an outlaw, if I was gonna be a bad guy, and I try not to be, but 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 I mean, if I was gonna be an outlaw, I would probably want to be a con man. But like Nick Cage says in the movie, he says if you're gonna do cons, you're gonna be hurting old people, you're gonna be hurting uh, people that are poor, you're gonna be hurting people that are, and it's like, no, I wouldn't do cons on. I would have to specifically target people that were wealthy enough that I thought they could recover from it. And
I don't know if you're familiar with the television show Leverage.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm not.
That
I'm saying yeah,
okay,
no,
so that is why I love Leverage.
yeah,
Less excited about these other, because in Leverage, they specifically go after bad guys.
okay,
Like their targets are people who are just absolute crap.
yeah, yeah. See, that's the thing. If I was gonna do cons, I would actually target people who were I consider to be kind of repulsive. For whatever reason, obscenely wealthy, whatever. I would choose people that I felt like this guy kind of deserves it. Or
That's why Robin Hood,
yeah,
robbers are villains.
yeah,
Robin Hood is a hero.
yeah, robs from the rich, gives to the poor kind of thing. So yeah, yeah, you're taking care of yourself. But I mean, the same thing was in Boondock Saints when they were attacking criminals, and they were keeping the money, and it was like, okay, well, the money's funding our what we do, so they justified taking the money because they were taking care of bad guys, and you'd think to yourself, yeah, they deserve to take the money because they are taking care of a problem in our society. So whether or not I wouldn't consider the wealthy just to be a problem in our society, because to me, if you're wealthy, you deserve your money, you earned it, you worked hard to get it. I have no
No,
problem.
but if you're wealthy because you're preying on others,
Yes, yeah, that's a whole different story. So to me, they're just as bad as a con man.
mm,
If you're somebody that takes advantage, whether you're taking advantage of, whether you're a corporate asshole that's taking advantage of, not to be political, but somebody that's taking advantage of, say, workers and people below you or your customers by overcharging, whatever you're doing. If it's something that, is kind of that's let's face it, it's greedy. And so taking advantage of a rich person who's being greedy, and actually the bad guy in this movie is in fact a rich guy that was somebody that probably didn't have to do what he was doing, but he was doing it because he was just wanted to make more money, and it was preying it into his greed, and that's how he got conned. But of course, he is in on the long con. It's all part of the deal. So
And
yeah,
that was my other problem with
yeah,
this is like Nicolas Cage, his character. So Roy Waller, he had money.
yeah.
He'd been doing cons for a while. I can't believe he had that much money. He stuck with short cons. He had mental illnesses. So he was certainly not as effective as like a Michael Caine style of con
Well,
man.
yeah, but here's my take on that. He had taught his partner everything he knew. So, and also the therapist, that when he's talking, the therapist is talking to him. They actually, it turns out that the medication is actually placebos.
Right?
It's not even real medication. So the therapist at one point was actually not a therapist, but he says to him, your problems are pretty minor. It's You're making more out of them than what they are. He's basically telling him that these are all things that are in your head, they're phobias, and his
So
partner
here's a
must have.
layperson giving him
I,
giving a vulnerable person medical advice.
true, but I have a feeling that his partner probably was very hip to what was going on with his character. And so yeah, my feeling on the his illness was that it was more minor than what he thought it was, and that it was also something that maybe had gotten worse as he was living his life alone, and with no one in his life, and maybe becoming more and more, I don't know if the term is agoraphobic, when you're shutting
Yeah,
yourself inside.
agoraphobic.
Yeah, and so he just kind of like developed a lot of obsessions, and it's kind of, did you ever watch any of Better Call Saul? And
Almost none. I
okay,
watched the very first episode and thought this is not for me.
okay, well, I really enjoyed it, and it has, of course, the main character Saul. He has a brother, and I can't think of the actor's name right now, but very talented actor. Has been in a lot of good comedies and a lot of, but he has this severe problem. He is living in his house. He went from being a successful lawyer, a very successful lawyer, to a guy who's become agoraphobic, and he's afraid of electricity. He has completely like cut everything off that's electric in his house, and he shields himself from electricity, and he feels like he's allergic to electricity. And there are people that profess to have that illness and that problem. There is a point where he has to give testimony at a trial, and he's going after his own brother. And there's a point in the show where they bring him into the courtroom with the assurance that there is no electricity that day. Everything's been shut down, everything, so that he can go in there. And he comes in and he's acting perfectly normal. And the defense attorney that's questioning him shows that in fact he has set up several different electronic devices that have been all over the place near him during, and he says, you do not in fact have any problem. You're this is psychological. And So, and then the guy immediately begins to act like he's feeling sick and things like that. But so okay, from a medical standpoint,
Yeah, no,
might
no.
not be.
Like that's a minor part of it. Like,
Yeah,
believe me, I could go on and on with
right.
their erroneous treatment of mental illness in this movie.
Yeah, yeah,
But my point is,
right,
I don't feel he was a multi-million-dollar con man.
right. Well,
Or number,
I don't know whether it was multi-million. His at one point when he begins to take the trust of this girl as his daughter, at one point he actually brings her into his bank and he actually puts her on as a signee, a co-signee. He has the one thing he has reserved is the password. So from her, but and she says, "Can I get the password?" And he says, "When I die." So she says, "Well, how much do you have in there?" And she goes, like, like 100,000. And he looks over, just kind of smiles. And she goes, like 500,000. And she's guessing all these numbers. And she goes, 1 million. And when she says 1 million, he kind of smiles and looks at her like, yeah, it's 1 million. So you figure that he must have been fairly close to collecting $1 million.
oh, okay, so let's say he's got $1 million.
Yeah,
Okay, his partner
yeah,
Frank set all this up,
yeah,
hired the therapist,
yeah,
hired the daughter,
yeah,
hired the mark, hired
right,
the pigeon,
yeah,
allowed himself to get the crap beat out of him.
yeah, oh yeah,
So, like, did all this. So he has other people involved. It's a very complex
oh
con.
yeah, absolutely is, yeah,
He's got other people he has to cut in,
yeah,
plus physical injury to himself
yeah,
for $1 million
yeah.
in
But
2003.
listen, when I was younger, I used to say, and I wouldn't do it now at my age now because it'd probably kill me. But when I was younger, I used to say I would step into the ring with Mike Tyson and let him beat me up for $1 million. And yeah, I back when I was young, hopefully I probably would have been able to take it when he knocked me out, and hopefully it would have knocked me out fairly quickly, so that I didn't take too bad of a beating. But I would do it for $1 million if and even today,
You
if
would do it for $1 million, but would you do it for $1 million if you had three other people to pay
yes,
out?
but at the end of the movie, and again, this is one of those things, but at the end of the movie, he does in fact encounter his daughter.
Yep.
Later on, she is not his daughter. He finds that out, realizes he's been completely conned, and the worst part about what they did to him was he actually felt he had a daughter, and he had become very fond of her, and it was become a part of his life. That to me was the cruelest thing they did, not the taking
The,
of his
the whole
money.
con was so cruel.
It was, but a con men are cruel. But that's part of the deal, and you're not supposed to have sympathy for your victim, which is one of the reasons why I probably couldn't do it. Um, but because I do feel sorry if I'm hurting somebody. I don't try to intentionally hurt anyone. Um, but anyway, he meets her in the new. He's a carpet salesman. He's
Mhm.
working in a carpet store, and he had actually told his daughter that he was going to go straight. So he had planned to go straight, and he really did want to get out of the con game. And he was telling his partner that he wanted to get out, and that's probably why his partner went after him. But he when he meets her, she goes, he says something about, "Oh, you're buying this with your money," and he also asked if the boyfriend that she had was her new, that was her. He was gonna be her next victim, and she said, "No, actually, he's my boyfriend. I don't do that anymore. That was a one time deal." And he asked about the like, are you spending my money to buy the carpet? And she said, "No, actually, I got screwed on that deal." He probably took the money and ran, and he probably didn't pay off. Maybe he paid off some of the guys, who knows, but he probably just ran. Conmen have done that many times, and I think he walked away with most of that money. so, so yeah, I think he took the beating for $1 million and walked away. But yeah, and he screwed his partner over. So
So he destroyed his current source of income, his
Yeah.
his his
Well, yeah,
regular
the
source of
college
income
buddy. And
tipped
he had the
off.
and he had the education, and he also knew that Nicolas Cage was becoming something of uh, a problem child, because he was, whenever they did the cons, I mean, sunlight in his eyes. Next thing you know, he's twitching. He's, there were problems with working with Nicolas Cage, so he kind of recognized this is the end. He was probably making for other partners. I mean, he probably took care of one or two of those guys that that
Well,
that
also like the fake hospital room. How
well,
much
that
did
was
that
actually the
cost
back.
to
I don't know if
set
you
up?
noticed. That was the back of the therapist's office. If you get, when he comes out, you could see it was the everything's moved out, but that was the therapist's office.
So rent on an office building for how many months?
Actually, it probably wasn't months. It was probably only about a month. They were talking about weeks when he was, or a week or two or whatever. I think that was probably done within a month. That whole
All I'm
con.
saying is that was an elaborate con.
Oh, of course it was.
It was
But I mean,
elaborate for like not what I consider that much of a payoff.
yeah. Well, would you put up 200,000 to make a million?
It depends
Because I
because there's
doubt they even
usually
paid.
things,
He might
other
have even
strings
they
attached.
might have even walked out on the rent. I mean, it was an elaborate con, yes, but I don't think there was that much. They actually made him use his own. He used the money from his account to do the swap, the bait and switch there with the other guy, and Nick Cage actually gave him the money. He said consider it a gift. I'm retiring. I'm getting out of the business, and then of course the con happens and he loses everything. But yeah, like I said, I don't think they actually put out that much money. I think they put out what they had to. Um, and let's face it, both guys were doing daily con jobs. So they were making enough money. They both drove good cars. Um, they were
Nicolas Cage had his own house.
yeah, and the other guy was driving a nice car also. They were doing all right. I mean, it was a money making business what they were doing for cons, and they just every once in a while one of them would say, "Hey, I got this new opportunity," and they worked together. But and again, like I said, the partner was obviously setting up his own position and setup, and he probably ran away to the Bahamas, and he probably started conning people. As rich people in the Bahamas, he probably started doing the cons down there. And then when that place got too hot, he'd go to Hawaii or wherever. There's always a new spot. So you
Hey,
know,
I'm just saying that was one of the issues that took my enjoyment away from the story.
yeah. I like I said, I can deal with the minor problems. I did see, to tell you the truth, I had more of a problem with the fact if I was gonna have a problem with anything in the movie, I really did. I'm giving this two thumbs up, two strong thumbs up. But to tell you the truth, if I had a problem at all, at the end of the movie, they show him going to the Czech girl. He's got a house, or she's maybe in his house. I'm not sure which, but they probably sold that one because I think they were in a different house. But he comes to the house, and the girl that he normally saw at the checkout counter that he was trying to work up the courage to speak to, obviously he had, because she was in the house preparing dinner, and she's pregnant, and she's
Yep.
clearly, and so he finally was going to have his kid of his own. So it was a happy ending. That was probably the hardest thing, because I thought to myself, well, he certainly managed to overcome a lot of problems. He's working a day-to-day job, and he's got a relationship and so how severe was his condition? Well, whether a lot of that was misdiagnosed, you know mental illness, and it was just, but I'm sure those things wouldn't just go away either. We all know that those things don't go away. So
Yeah, I give it a solid one thumb up.
yeah,
It's a decent movie. It's a solid
well acted.
piece of entertainment.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not great. There are problems with it. There are issues.
I wouldn't say it was great. It's not my favorite con movie. Um, but it's one I thoroughly enjoyed. I love the acting performances out of everybody. Certainly the three main characters um, pictured on the screen here. I would give all three of them, uh, you know, full accolades for the performances. And I thought the plot was a decent plot. It's not flawless, but I thought it was really good.
I would say performance wise, um, Alison Lohman, in my mind, is the star of this movie.
Oh, she's great. She's absolutely great.
Uh,
But I
I've
love Nick Cage.
I've loved Sam Rockwell in everything I've seen him in.
Yep.
I feel his talents were a little wasted here, given that he wasn't sort of that major a character.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell I like Sam Rockwell. I always feel like he's playing he's playing best supporting actor in pretty much every role that he has. Um, for the most part, I always feel there's somebody else that's playing the strong lead. It's
Have you seen Moon?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get it, but that wasn't one of my. I like that. I like Moon. I thought it was good, but I that was not like I'd take this over Moon any day if
Okay,
I was going to
okay.
pick it for a Sam Rockwell.
And then Nicolas Cage, I feel he relied on the mental illness aspects of his character way too much.
Yeah, yeah.
It was he just like Sam Rockwell. I feel that his talents were sort of wasted
Well,
on the role. He did a great job. He could
yeah.
have done so much better.
Well, Nick Cage, he's always been an actor that I've had a little bit of a problem with.
He's all over the map.
He whether it's the movie that he's in or whether it's his performance, I feel like he's always somebody that if you don't if a director doesn't use a lot of control with Nick Cage, he's gonna ham it up too much. He's gonna chew too much of the scenery in the wrong way, and it's not going to be a good. There's some actors that it's like let them go. Don't hold them back because they're really good. And I'm not saying Nick Cage isn't, but I think he can be really up and down. And even in the same movie, he can give you five great scenes and two terrible ones in the same movie. So that's my problem with Nick Cage. And he's been in some real stinkers. So yeah, but I thought he was generally very good in this. Very good. So again, I like the movie. I'm not gonna
I think it's
lie
a good
here.
movie. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
yeah,
I don't see myself being drawn back to it.
yeah. Well, I've seen it. Let's put it this way: I've seen it a couple of times, and I enjoyed it just as much the second time, even when I knew really knew what was going on. If anything, it gave me a chance to examine what was going on, and I didn't really find it that flawed. I found that it was, it was to me it was an excellent movie, a decent con movie. There are better con movies. There are con movies where you are really in suspense and on pins and needles because you were aware of the con at all times. With
Mhm.
this one, um, and up to the point where he got knocked. Actually, to tell you the truth, when everything started really coming together that something's wrong, was the scene in the living room when the shooting happened. And that, if I had a problem, another problem I would say was the scene when he got shot, and
Mhm.
that they trusted Nick Cage to to get rid of the body because if they hadn't if the knockout scene hadn't happened, and never trust a knockout anyway, a blow to the head to knock somebody out. That's something that's done in Hollywood a lot, where they have somebody get punched in the back of the head or whacked in the back of the head and they go unconscious. Hey, you're a doctor. You know what I'm talking about.
I do
It,
indeed.
even somebody taking a shot to the chin by Tyson, you go down and you're going to get back up again unless you're really badly damaged. You're
Well, not
probably
only
going to,
that, like you've got the chance of, getting knocked out, shaking it off,
yeah,
or outright dying.
yeah, yeah. So there's a number of things that can happen, but Hollywood, let's face it, Hollywood has always used that shtick
Yep.
of knocking somebody out, whether it's a punch to the head, a karate chop to the to the neck, or Spock's Vulcan nerve pinch.
Hmm.
Like, good luck, buddy. Good luck, buddy, putting that person. Even the whole chloroform thing. That's another movie standby. Come on, again. You're a doctor. You know what I'm talking about. You put one of those over somebody's face, you can kill them for one thing. Too much or too, and you
Well,
burn their face. There's,
not only that, like, before medical school, I trained as a chemist.
right,
I've had a face full of chloroform before.
right. I haven't, but
And it definitely makes you woozy. It doesn't exactly knock you out.
yeah,
You'd
yeah.
have to have that against your face for a long time.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. Because I've always heard, you put something like, because there have been people that have like pressed that in movies against somebody or left a cloth over something. It's like you just killed that person, So I mean, you're
Yeah,
either
and
gonna,
also it's going to give you chemical burns.
yeah. So there's so many things, But again, that's a Hollywood standby. Chloroform, knocking somebody in the head. It's like Hollywood just doesn't get it, man. Come up with better. It would have been better if somebody had given him an injection in the neck or wherever.
There are so many movies I want to, movies and TV shows I want to complain to. Like, why did you not have a medical consultant? Why did you not have a
Yeah,
scientific
yeah.
consultant about this? Like,
See, now that's something we ought to do sometime. Is do a talk on things that actually could not happen in maybe even in a good movie, that actually it's like the movie was a great movie, but you could not have done this, or it shouldn't have happened like this because of blah blah blah. So yeah, that there's so many things. Hollywood really screws it up. But back to this movie, like I said, I enjoyed it. I give it 2 strong thumbs up. I think it's, that's the end scene with Nick Cage, and she's preparing dinner, and she's pregnant, and he's thoroughly happy. So good ending. But again, I acknowledge it isn't perfect.
I give it a strong one thumbs up. It's a solid piece of entertainment.
Yeah,
But again, to my mind, it's not like one of the movies you need to see before you die.
no, no, I will give you that too. And there are better con movies. This is one that I had seen probably a little more recently. I because it was in the last couple of years, and I think because of that, the movie was kind of like in my head, and I like Nick Cage.
Oh, I love Nick Cage.
It's I'm probably, sometimes when I talk about Nick Cage, I think I probably come off as being somebody that doesn't like Nick Cage, but I do like, it's just that, again, sometimes he phones it in, or he overdoes it or whatever. But when he's good, he's great.
So speaking of Nick Cage,
Yes.
I like to add, when we post these videos, I like to add little links to add to the viewer's enjoyment, their
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
And so the link I'm going to add to this movie is to a podcast I found while researching this movie called Cage Match.
Nice.
And these two guys just started this podcast like late last year,
Excellent.
where they will watch two Nicolas Cage movies and then debate which one was better,
Wow.
until the ultimate goal of the podcast is to achieve what is the best Nicolas Cage movie.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent.
So I encourage anyone that's a fan of Nicolas Cage to check the podcast out.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I definitely, and I'm a fan of Sam Rockwell too. I
love Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, I might have sounded like I was being dismissive of him. I just consider him more of and it's just me, but I just consider him more of a
No, you're
supporting
right.
actor.
The roles he has normally chosen or gotten,
Yeah,
it, it seems like he has almost actively avoided being a star.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think you're right. You absolutely are right. Because I think he could. I think he could carry a picture on his own. You just need the right, you know, give him the right role. And well, Moon was good, but
At some
but
point, we'll have to choose. Oh, what is it called? I think it's Mr. Right, where he
huh,
plays an assassin. It's like a
huh,
rom-com where he's an assassin.
wow, I haven't seen that one. You know, I'm rom-coms are not my first choice, but if they're good, I love. There's a couple of movies that I've got in like the background. A couple of them that I really want to talk about later with you when because I want to probably pull them up as a choice, one of my picks that are actually they're above and beyond what the regular rom-com is because some rom-coms are just like it's okay, it's too much, you know. I don't want to I'm not going to review Notting Hill. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things I love about this channel we're doing is
Yeah,
because we love movies. We're all over the map. Con
yeah.
movies, comedies,
Oh yeah.
sports, sci-fi. Like
Oh yeah.
we're going to do it all at some
If
point.
it's good, it's good. That's the way I look at it. And I'm not saying Notting Hill isn't good on some level. It's just that it wouldn't be one of my first. I don't know if I've ever seen
Also,
it.
not every movie we're going to choose is a good movie. It's going to
Yeah,
be
that's true.
something we
Oh
enjoy for some reason.
yeah, yeah. Believe me, I haven't even pulled up my good bad ones yet, but they'll be coming.
I'm sure. Mine too.
Yeah. So this was my pick this week, and next week is your pick. So so we'll talk about that after the broadcast is over. But but no, I hope you did get some enjoyment out of this.
Oh, I
Uh,
totally enjoyed it. It's just that, again, we've both seen so many movies.
oh yeah,
It's easy to pick out flaws when you're that familiar with the
sure.
art.
Sure. And again, I will fully admit it. There are better, you know, con movies. This one, you know, I mean,
But if you
Grifters.
don't think too hard about it, it's a completely entertaining movie.
Oh, absolutely, it is. It entertained me both times that I saw it. If you haven't seen it, I would urge you to see it. And
Lisa
and
liked it.
good, good. Yeah, I was actually wondering what her opinion of it was, but I kind of was almost shocked that I really wasn't familiar with it when I did see it because I was like, okay, I kind of know the name of that, and I watched the trailer, and I was like, yeah, I'm checking this out, and so like I said, you know, when I did see it, I was like, damn, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, but that's my opinion on it, and again, next week is yours. So,
You got our take. I've got a movie in mind. We'll
yeah,
talk about it next week.
all right, sounds good, Dom. I think are we at the end here? We're
I
wrapping it
think
up.
we're at the end. I think we've
Yep.
said what we have to say.
Yep, sounds good. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe. Um, Dom and I, we're really having fun with this. We hope you
So
guys
much
are
fun.
too. Yeah, seriously, this is what we love. We're not professionals. We're never gonna be professionals. We're just two guys. We're two guys that love movies and we like to talk about them. Hopefully, we're not boring you. Hopefully, we're actually providing you a few laughs, maybe some trivia, and a good time. Hopefully, but see you next week. And Dom, it's been a pleasure.
It's been
Uh,
great, man. I'll
all
see you
right,
next week.
you take care. Thank you.